Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to this week's Amazon QuickSight Learning Series. This week's session is what I would call a special edition on the QuickSight Learning Series. The reason being, we have generally so far talked about features and functionalities that have been already launched and available for you to work on. But today we'll be talking about in detail on a pre-announcement of some of our upcoming functionalities in the space of generative BI. We had this announcement in end of July, 2 months back, and since then we have received tremendous interest from folks all over the world in wanting to learn more. So we thought, why not use the learning series as a platform to educate people more on this announcement, and also for you to understand how your BI journey will be transforming with what we are going to offer in the time coming soon. My name is Shamal Krishna. I'm a senior product manager at Amazon QuickSight, and I'm joined with my colleague Shrikant Baheti, who is a principal solutions architect also at Amazon QuickSight. Before we dive into our agenda today, I think this is an opportune moment to reflect on the journey QuickSight has had so far and how the announcement which we're going to be talk about makes so much sense in the journey we have had. So let me take one moment here and ask all of you, what do you think in your business or your day-to-day work prevents you to take data-driven solutions? I want you to think top one or two reasons that prevents or you think could have prevented someone like you in being able to use data and insights effectively. And I'll probably wait for some comments on the chat before I share what research has to say on this. I think we are, most of us are in the same boat. A recent research by Gartner shows the top two reasons for people not being able to be successful in their data and analytics journey is one, as you have mentioned, working with the messy data. So analyst spends an overwhelming amount of time just reshaping data, cleaning it out, and what actually we sometimes joke as a janitorial work in the data science space. And the second most leading reason is the need for proper learning for people to be able to use tools effectively for their business use. We have so many tools available. QuickSight is one of them, but that's on the visualization. There's backend tools, and people typically get overwhelmed on the learning curve some of them have. At Amazon and AWS, we pride ourselves in being customer obsessed and keeping the problems customers have in the forefront of everything we do. And these were the drivers we had to bring up Amazon QuickSight to all of you. Back in 2016, we announced and launched a new service on AWS for addressing the BI needs of our customers. These needs address people's inability to work with messy data and also tries to minimize the learning curve which is involved in that. Overall, QuickSight enables BI for everyone in the organization that needs them, not just the analyst, not just the reader, but also the admins, the developers, the executives. And what QuickSight uses under the hood are state-of-the-art machine learning algorithms and natural language querying to provide meaningful insight. QuickSight has a serverless architecture, which enables consumption based on pricing and auto scales. And therefore, what we call internally is it provides BI at scale to anyone or BI at hyperscale. And I'm sure most of you are familiar with that, and that's why you are with me and wanting to learn. But that's where learn more where we are going from here. But that's where we started from. And our big customer base, we have over 100,000 active customers today, is a testimony to our success. I'm sure many of you who are on call today may be seeing their names or the organizations they work for listed here. And that's because it's you, the people who have made us successful. Then in 2020, we had our next milestone where we announced QuickSight Q. This is something which I really like to call out. Most of the folks here on the call would have learned about large language models probably since last year when ChatGPT came across and kind of revolutionized this space. But we at Amazon QuickSight have been using our internal language models ever since our inception of Q. We use, as you see on the screen, we use machine learning models and language models to provide meaningful insights. Last year, we announced the capability of answering why questions. People have many different KPIs they're working for, but when it changes, the first question the executive asks is why it changed. And QuickSight Q offered a seamless manner to answer that question right on your screen using LLMs. Also, we have anomaly detection and forecasting that are powered by our internal LLMs and in product today. What we have done with time, especially this year, is integrated and leveraged other announced AWS services, primarily Bedrock, and also services like Code Whisperer to augment this experience even further, which we'll go in detail in this session. The next major milestone in QuickSight's journey was in 2021 when we launched our community. And what is QuickSight community? So if you're part of this learning series, most likely you have already signed up using the community. But this is a one-stop shop for all your learning needs. We have, when you go to the community, you'll be not only able to ask questions for your needs, but you can also learn about upcoming and new functionalities. There are blog posts and also sign up for events like these. So requesting you to take a moment to sign up for the community if you have not already. You can take a quick screenshot here or use the link in the chat that will be shared soon. Talking about community and question and answers, most of you would be familiar. We use our community to take questions and answers, and we'll use the same in today's session as well. And we typically use tags for us to mark your questions and get prioritized answering. For today's session, the tag we'll be using will be hashtag QLS-GenBI-new. We'll be adding another tag just for us to streamline questions further. And I'm requesting you, this is a change we are implementing this time, to add first the tag hashtag author, and then the tag for this session to ask your questions. Our experts here are very excited to address your questions and understand what you have to say about generative BI and QuickSight at large. Now let's come to today's agenda, what we have all been waiting for. As I said, a couple of months back, we announced new generative BI capabilities, which we'll be walking you through in this session. The first one is the new AI-powered authoring experience that we'll talk about. After that, we'll talk about new generative data stories. And finally, very quickly, we'll cover how QuickSight helps build AI-powered data apps. Let's talk about the authoring experience first. So let's see the two main problems, what our customers face, and QuickSight is integrated in QuickSight's DNA to be addressing. One, making the authoring and BI experience time efficient. We don't want authors and our QuickSight readers and audience in general to be spending time where they should not be and focusing on the core insights. And second, also, how can we launch our customers to success by reducing the learning curve in the tool which we are offering? Let's see how generative BI powered authoring helps address these particular tasks. I would want you to think about the situation, and I'm pretty sure my author friends here would be able to relate, at least I am. You may have joined a new organization as a business analyst, and it's the end of the day, and your boss says that your team recently just today got access to a data source on their sales campaign, which they have been asking for weeks now. And your boss is super excited and wants you to present a report on it tomorrow. And you may be thinking, I have created dozens of dashboards in Amazon QuickSight. I just wonder, with all this power of generative AI I'm hearing about, why don't I just tell QuickSight what to build and it builds it on its own? I have done enough work already, and it's already end of the day. I just wish it could be done in as soon as possible for my time. That is exactly what we help our authoring audience with their um, journey using the new generative BI functionalities. We help our authors accelerate their visualization, creation, and editing tasks. Also, what we have kept in mind is they will use the business language as they have been. There is no need to learn a different language or syntaxes for being successful in their job. And finally, on the learning, we are purely leveraging natural language as the input the authors have to provide in being able to create their task. And therefore, almost zero new learning that will be needed to be successful in being a generative BI powered author. Let me talk about specifically the three functionalities for authoring that were pre-announced, and I will be showcasing you a demo today. The first and foremost is creating net new visualizations using natural language. That's the bread and butter for our authors, creating visualizations that go in dashboard. So it made sense for us to first address that need. Now, with simple language prompts, they need not be accurate. Whatever the author thinks is best for the business, they can ask to QuickSight to build a visualization about. And QuickSight will give you what it thinks is best, which can be further worked upon by the author. The next thing which any author does is edit visualizations. Now, these may be visualizations which the author has just created using AI, or there may be pre-existing visualizations and analysis corresponding to your dashboard. We offer the ability to quickly fine-tune and edit your visualizations, again, using only natural language. So you need not know what are the functions and the background options in settings that need to be manipulated or cannot be manipulated, but just ask in a prompt your desired state, and QuickSight will try to understand that and make a corresponding change into your visualization, which you will see as you're free to discard or keep working on in iterations. Now, what's the other most common thing every author inadvertently has to do? If you have created anywhere more than 3 dashboards, I can almost guarantee that you would have used calculated fields. And this is where we have heard the most complaints about the learning curve. Every tool has a different syntax, and people need to refer to the documentation all the time to make sure their functions are working as intended. Now, with using natural language, we are automating creating calculations as well. Again, you as an author have to simply think about what your business need is and tell that in a natural language. And QuickSight will understand that and give you the exact calculation you need that will power your visualization. I hope this has been exciting for all of you to hear what these new functionalities we have launched. I think now it's time to actually see them. So I will be showcasing you an actual working demo of these functionalities on QuickSight.
Now let's take a look at how generative BI capabilities in Amazon QuickSight can help business analysts to more quickly create dashboards. For this scenario, we're going to analyze some marketing campaign data, but we're going to look at it by sales account manager. So the first thing I'm going to do is go up to the Ask Q button at the top because I want to create a visual. Now, in this case, I'm going to ask a vague question. So you're going to see here, I've said, I'd like top AMs. What does that mean? What does top mean? Well, Q has made a guess, and you can see just below this, it says, I've interpreted this as total lead revenue by account manager. So even though I've asked this vague question, Q has mapped it onto the language of my data. Now maybe that's not what I meant though. So you can see at the bottom, Q has actually created some alternative questions that may be what I mean that match to my data. For example, it says total conversions by account manager or total impressions by account manager. Conversions is what I want. So I'm going to just go down and click on conversions by account manager, which is going to ask the more precise question, which will generate a different visual. Now that I have it, I can quickly add it to my analysis. Okay, let's ask another question. Now I'd like to know about conversion rate and impressions by AM. Now I can quickly add this to my analysis. But Q has created a table, and I'd like to see this presented differently. So I'm going to use the new generative chart editing capability to change my visual type to a scatter plot just by describing in natural language what I want. Change type to scatter plot. Okay, let's ask another question. I'd like to know about impressions. So I'm going to ask for total impressions by campaign to get a visual. In this case, though, I think it would be valuable to know how long a particular campaign generated impressions for. And for this, I'm actually going to need a custom calculation. So let's look at how generative BI capabilities can help me to create custom calculations. I'll insert a calculated field, give it a name, total impression days, and in the Build For Me window, I'll just describe the calculation that I want to create. So in this case, that's the difference in days between the last impression date and the first impression date. When I ask to build this for me, it's going to create a QuickSight expression describing that outcome. So you can see here, it chose to use the dateDiff function. And it's created a calculation that shows the difference in days so that I can use it in my analysis. That calculation appears in my field list, so I can easily grab it and add it directly to my visual. So you can see these generative capabilities work alongside the existing authoring capabilities. So you have both, and by working together, they can speed the process of data analysis. Here I'm going to change the chart type that we just created into a tree map.
I hope you were able to get some idea of how this new generative BI authoring capabilities work. With this, we have covered the first part of our pre-announced features on generative BI. And I would now ask my colleague Srikant Baheti to talk to you about data stories in Amazon QuickSight.
Sure. Thank you, Shamal. That was great. I'm like the first impression I had when I initially saw was like, okay, hey, this looks very similar to Q, and I see a lot of folks also talking about like, okay, first impression of this being just like Q, but then we took what we had in Q and extended it And we will see how it all works towards the end of this presentation. So you know where is the differentiation between Q and this piece comes into play. But before that, I would like to next talk about data stories in QuickSight. Yeah, so this image here reminds me of my good old days from when I was a kid. I used to visit my grandma's village, and we used to sit around the fire every single night. And my grandma used to tell those great stories about her experience in life. And what was crucial in those stories is like there were so many data points, and we were all grasping and learning a lot of stuff through her own personal experiences as kids, right? So let's see how we can bring that to QuickSight. So using data stories, just like how as kids we were able to learn from what our grandma's experiences were, here using data stories in QuickSight, we can discover the data and explain those findings fairly quickly and learn about how to improve our decision making through these stories. Second piece stories offer is governed data access. What does that mean? Today, in this world, it is even more important to have that governance in place and have right access to right people at right time to the data so that they can make those decisions, right? That with QuickSight, the stories being within QuickSight, and you have already centralized governance in place with QuickSight, you are governing all that in one place and your stories are being generated in QuickSight based on that governance. Third piece that stories offer is they are always up to date. And I would like to give another example here is in my previous role in my previous company, I used to report into my chief data office. And in that role, our chief data officer used to occasionally come ask, "Hey Sri, can you pull me these metrics from our AWS bill of from last quarter? Can you pull these additional metrics of how our business and revenue is doing?" Based on all those different reports, I used to go pull them. And then I was curious. Initially, I didn't understand why he's asking me to do that. But then eventually I went and asked him like, "Hey, what is going on? Why do you need all these every 2, 3 months? Can we automate this? Can I do something for you?" And he was like, "No, Sri, because I need to collect these metrics and then build a presentation so that I can go back to my higher ups and show and talk about how business is doing, how we need either more funds or how we need to manage everything as far as the health of the business goes, right?" So stories is a great example to avoid such back and forth between data officers and architects and data engineers. And at the same time, every single time based on the numbers, my chief data officer used to go sit and build a story so that he can go back and communicate, right? With QuickSight, all the data being in QuickSight, governed in QuickSight, your story sitting in QuickSight gets updated automatically every quarter, every month based on how your data is getting refreshed. So there is no need to update the story. There is no need of that laborious work of getting those insights from different reports and putting them together and then creating a story around it to present. So that's what we are bringing in the form of stories to QuickSight, where you can directly get those insights and build those stories automatically for you. So what does stories do in QuickSight? Stories, they can interpret data for others, which means you can play, just like we saw how authors are able to now go into QuickSight through that Q console, they are able to go ask those questions, build those visuals. Same way, your business users, just in the example I was talking about, my chief data officer can directly go into QuickSight, type in what story he wants to build to be able to present to the higher management, and type in plain English language, and QuickSight will be able to interpret that, go back, tie it back to the data, and bring back and create that story using generative AI. The content that it gets is completely refined, and it is built based on the broad world knowledge of these LLMs that are available. And we'll look at how it all works towards the end. But as these stories are getting built, you will see that, okay, as a user, as a business user, you can just type all the things that you want as part of the story, including, okay, you want any strategy to be built, you want any suggestions or recommendations. So based on the broad world knowledge on these various different topics, QuickSight is going to build that cohesive story with visuals plugged in from your dashboards to be able to then go refine it further and present. Let's look at how stories work in a demo.
Let's take a look at how generative BI capabilities and Amazon QuickSight can help business users to create compelling stories using data in order to drive decisions. Here we have a dashboard, and this one is showing marketing campaign effectiveness, and I'd like to create a story about it. The first thing I'll see when I select this entry point is a choice between two content types. So I can choose a scrollable page or a slideshow format. In this case, let's pick a page. Now I'm going to see a generative story builder where I can describe using natural language what I'd like my story to be about. So I'm going to say build a story about account manager performance, focusing on revenue, and highlighting key visuals. I could choose a theme, and I'll build. QuickSight has created an entire story in multiple points. So you can see there's an introduction, current performance challenges, expand account penetration, visualizing performance metrics, a number of sections dealing with the overall narrative of campaign performance in my business. If we look for a moment just at visualizing performance metrics, you'll see the narrative says this chart clearly shows a wide spread in performance among account managers. The top 3 account managers, Nestor, Ashley, and Hedwig, are generating over 17% of total conversions with only 3 individuals. In contrast, the bottom 3 account managers are generating less than 2% of conversions with only 58 total. So it's actually looking inside my data and it's doing some analysis. And it goes on, it says, hey, this indicates that the company would benefit from coaching and training programs for lower performing account managers in order to bring their performance closer to the top tier. So it's actually giving me recommendations, and it's able to do this because it's bringing together the BI of QuickSight with the broad world knowledge of a large language model. Okay, I'd like to reformat this presentation, and stories are an editable document type. So I can actually ask the AI to just change content into bullets. It can summarize for me. I can also just click to edit, so I can resize images. I can insert additional content. So I'll just go pick revenue by account manager visual that I have that I'd like to include. And you'll see it automatically summarizes the data in that visual for me. I'm going to change the text, and I can do that manually. So you'll see, again, these generative capabilities working alongside the manual editing facilities to keep the human in the loop so that I retain control over what my story says.
All right. So as we saw how stories can be generated with just like a single prompt and then be further refined as per your requirements. But then what is beauty about it is like all the data sits within QuickSight. The story gets updated as the data is getting updated. So you do not have to go start from scratch every single quarter, every single month, depending on requirements. And then depending on your data access levels with respect to row level security, column level security, based on that, the story gets modified and then it's shared. When it is shared with others within the same QuickSight account, you get your own view of that story. right? Next, let's go ahead and look at what are the other data, how QuickSight powers the data applications. As of today, QuickSight offers embedding capabilities into your business applications, so your business users can directly get access to those insights from your business applications. We have variety of embedding capabilities in the form of one-click no-code embedding and API-based embedding. When it comes to your no-code one-click embedding, we have different use cases where you can do a public embedding of the dashboards and visuals, or you can do an enterprise level embedding where you can have authenticated users get into that enterprise embedding use case. Whereas for a lot of ISVs that we work with and a lot of large scale enterprise customers who have launched their data products and data apps, they use our API based embedding, both anonymous embedding and registered user embedding. The difference between the two is mainly where you have registered user embedding when you know that your users are going to be limited in number, let's say 500 to 1000 users, you're still able to manage that. But then as that scale grows from 1000 users to thousands of users, it becomes a scalability issue with respect to management of these users within QuickSight. For those use cases, we have anonymous embedding. In both these use cases, how AI is powering today is through QBar. You can embed that QBar into your applications when you use our API based embedding and have your end users ask those questions directly off of Q and get the answers instantaneously instead of waiting on development teams and reporting teams to go back and build those insights that your users are looking for, so that the feedback loop is continuous between the users and your developers of report, so they can continuously build on to existing dashboards. But at the same time, you're unblocking your end customers and end users with Q uh, in the form of natural language querying to get their answers instantly. So as I said, insights for everyone and for anywhere. There are variety of use cases that QuickSight tackles today in the form of public embedding, anonymous embedding, API-based embedding, registered user embedding, and all these embedding comes in different flavors to power your data applications. So we saw authoring capabilities, we saw stories, we saw Q, how it powers your data applications. But then there is a question always like, hey, Sri, how does generative BI works? So let's look into that. And this is the first thing that I want to call out, that no customer data is used to train these models, or customer data never leaves their AWS account, which means you are rest assured that we are not using your data for training any of these models. And this is like the top one question that we get. Hey, how is my data being used to train these models? In fact, we are not using any of your data to train models, and your data stays where it is as of today. Let's look at how it works. So you have your enterprise data, which can be sitting within your AWS account or your on-premise servers or any cloud applications like Salesforce, other applications like Jira, anywhere, right? What you're doing today is you're getting that data connected to Amazon QuickSight, and your authors come in and create those data sets, analysis, dashboards using the analytical engine that powers QuickSight. And on top of that, you can also create queue and topic in queue. And finally, your readers are asking questions. This is the current landscape. Everyone knows how all of this works, and you are using it, and how Shamal explained it earlier, that we have over 100,000 customers on QuickSight today using all these features. First thing, I want to call out how Q works. Shamal pointed out that back in 2020, when we launched Q, we started using these large language models, which were like homegrown models for Q that were very good at identifying the intent when a user was asking the questions, they were very good at identifying the intent, mapping it back to your data, and then building those visuals and giving it back to your end users. That's how Q worked. But then recently, in last 6 months or so, we have all this generative AI things came into play, and now everyone wanted to see how generative AI can be used in BI landscape, right? Because generative AI, everyone thinks of like, okay, I'm going to ask questions, and then it's kind of a chat bot where you're asking questions, you're getting responses. But Q was already doing that. How did we take that and implement that generative capabilities into BI landscape is what I'm going to talk about next. So with generative AI, what we did is we brought together capabilities of our homegrown models and Amazon Bedrock. Amazon Bedrock, as everyone is aware of, is our offering from AWS to get access to those underlying models through APIs, right? So we combined the power of Amazon Bedrock and our own homegrown models. Those are same models that Q was powered with together to bring you the capabilities of generating visuals and calculations for your authors. Next, using the broad world knowledge of these LLMs that Amazon Bedrock is able to get access to, we are able to get those stories generated through the power of Q, combined power of Q, analytical engine of QuickSight, and broad world knowledge of these LLMs. We are able to get those stories working. So overall, in a nutshell, it seems all like very simple, but then because Q had that capability of intent recognition and mapping back to the data, we coupled that with Amazon Bedrock and all the LLMs, the capabilities of LLMs with respect to broad world knowledge, and married it all together to bring that power to QuickSight. And that is how generative BI works in Amazon QuickSight. All right, so today we talked about three things. We talked about how we are enabling our authors to do accelerated development. Yes, Q was there, but then it was not giving accelerated development powers to our authors. So with generative BI capabilities, we are enabling our authors to build faster dashboards, faster visuals, faster calculations, and then not just build, but also refine those with natural language query. Second, with data stories, we are enabling business users to easily build these stories and share findings across the organization. With AI-powered data applications in the form of Q, we were already having innovative experiences for your end users so that they do not have to go to multiple different applications to get information that they need. With that, I would like you to just take a look at our latest blog post on generative BI capabilities in Amazon QuickSight. And there is tons of more information that is being shared. Stay tuned for more information from us as we get closer to getting this to your hands. With that, I'd like to thank you and thank Shamal for being a co-presenter here today.